So we're going live now. Okay. Hello, 1, 2. Stream is live. I'm just letting the punters know.
Oh, that's that.
Excuse me.
But if you hit that one, yeah, we can see us.
Right.
Maybe.
Nick, was the Expressive E thing announced this morning? Because I couldn't find anything about it.
Yeah, and we're live. So no, it isn't. It's apparently this evening.
Ah. Okay.
So after we finish, unfortunately, right at the end.
Oh, that's
6
a shame.
o'clock. Yeah. It is a shame. Okay, right. So hello everybody. So has everybody got the? Yep. Okay. We're live. Let me go to my notes. Got the notes. Got everything else going. Everything. Let's hit go on the recorder. Just for the backup. And oops, what I haven't done is set my record path for the show yet. Okay. 5.9. Oh, well, I'll do. That's going to go in there. Whatever. Okay. Right, I think we have everybody. Stand by. Here we go. Or stand by. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk episode 598. Yeah, 2 away from 600. Gosh, all those episodes lost in time. Well, actually, they're not lost in time. You can get them on iTunes or wherever it is that you get your iPods, your podcasts. Though we only did video from about episode 200 or 300, I forget now. Anyway, which music technology podcast is what I'm talking about. Though we talk about software, hardware, synthesizers, music production, all the kind of stuff around it. So do stay tuned if that's your bag, and do subscribe if you've not already discovered us, and perhaps this is your first time. Be more than happy to have you. And also like to say thank you very much to our friends over at Isotope, who will be giving away a full copy of Ozone 9 Advanced as a prize. So you want to stay tuned for that, because it's a very simple way to enter. So do stick around for that one. Let's say hello to our guests. Well, we'll say hello to our chatties. We've got people in the chat room. We've got people in the IRC as well, or we would have once I'd put the IRC input together, which I've obviously forgotten. But I want to say hello to our guests. We're going to start over here because we got a kind of triumvirate. It looks a little bit like maybe I'm conducting a criminal investigation and they're under lights, and maybe if there was some kind of grid lines behind, but actually it's not. They're not in a police interview room. They're at ADC in London. And we have Gaz Williams, who you will know, of course, from being on the show. On the my left, we've got Henny, the business, who is a highly renowned YouTuber, but mostly a music producer. In fact, Henny, we hear that you just got Grammy nominated today, right?
Yes. 5 times now. Yes, it's awesome. Thank you.
Wow, what'd you get nominated for?
It was the best rap album for J. Cole Dreamville's album, Revenge of the Dreamers 3. So it's pretty awesome.
Nice. And how is it? Because I mean, you must have finished work on that, like, I don't know, however long ago, and now it's sort of coming back at you. Had you sort of forgotten about that, or how long ago did you actually finish work on it?
We finished work on it in January. The album came out in July, and it's been doing very well. It's platinum right now, so it's been awesome.
Nice. I'm going to have to quiz you a bit more about that. But we've also got on the right hand side, we've got Matt. Now, I've got to pronounce this right, Matt. Matt Hesher.
Fesher.
Matt Fesher from Audio Kit, who is iOS. I guess, is it iOS developer, or is it desktop as well?
Yes. Yeah, I created AudioKit Synth 1, AudioKit D1, and AudioKit Synth 1 is completely open source synthesizer. It's now the most used synthesizer on iOS, iPad, iPhone.
Wow, so we got app royalty in today. So these guys
have zero Grammys.
Yeah, but what there must be an ADC, there must be a developer equivalent for that. I don't know what it is, you know. Kudos. Yeah, something like that. So you guys are at ADC. I'll come back to you now, but in a moment, I'm just going to introduce Ty as well, because he's also here from the studio in the Cotswolds, where you may recognise him for such videos as, and I spotted this the other day actually, the Studio Logic Grand controller, which I was watching earlier, and also the Spitfire BBC Symphony Orchestra library, which Ty very kindly did with us. So you've come out the other side of your massive workload, right? So you've got a little bit of airtime.
I'm taking a big chunk of time off.
Woo! And you're choosing to spend it with us. Wow, what an honour!
I'm choosing an hour to spend with you now, but
that's all we can afford.
It's going to be great. I need it. I mean, when I last saw you, I was coming towards the end of it's been a really hard summer in terms of work. So so it's all done, and so I've just said no to everything. So I've got 2 or 3 months off.
Excellent. So you can start wrapping Christmas presents and putting up the decorations and building snowmen and all those things that normal people do.
What I'll be doing, exactly. Normal? What's that? Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, Ty. It's lovely to have you. So I'm going to come back to you guys. Tell us about the ADC then, because were you all on the same panel? Tell us what panels you've been on.
Yes. So Matthew here kindly got in touch with me and asked me to be part of this panel with Henny, and actually with Henrik, who created Auxy, which is another great iOS app, and Matt Derbyshire, formerly of Focusrite. He's actually just left to be a full-time dad, which is cool. But we were brought in to talk basically about mobile versus desktop. So I'll let Matt come in here, because you were the guy who really brought this all together.
Yeah, we're just kind of talking about future uses of mobile apps and desktop apps and where they diverge and where they come together and where we think the future is going. And it was a real lively discussion. And he talked about how he's a full-time iOS music producer now, doing everything on there, and I'll let him speak to that. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, for the last 5 years, I've been doing nothing but trying to be as professional as possible on iOS devices, such as my iPad Pro, iPad Mini, or even using my iPhone to create professional music. So it's been quite the journey, to deal with the clack knots and all that.
Oh yeah.
But, for the most part, it's been an amazing experience so far. So yeah.
Sorry.
So I was going to say we did the panel was yesterday afternoon. So like today we're a little bit worse for wear because we kind of hit the town big style yesterday.
Yes, well, I was there for the early part of the evening, and I hope you haven't broken Ed, because he came along as well, and I know he was he may have felt somewhat at ease because he was in his hometown and thought, what's the worst that can happen? I don't want to know details of the evening. Henny, can I just come back to you a sec? Because one of the reasons I first came across you, because you do a lot of video editing stuff as well. I mean, we were talking about it yesterday. You did that kind of breakthrough video, which was bizarrely on video editing, which is using LumaFusion, which we're very keen on for our remote stuff. So you're using iPad, in the studio on the Grammy stuff as well. So you show up with the iPad and you're contributing beats. I mean, what stuff are you doing on that?
Yeah, so I've been doing everything from music, doing the beats, bringing in live musicians, guitarists, bassists, drummers, percussionists, all using mobile interfaces, Apogee, Zoom, some of these other products to be able to record on the go. Actually, the song that was nominated for the Grammy this year that I worked on, we actually did it, the melodies and the guitar parts in the car driving around. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, driving around the interstate while we were recording it as a process to see if it would work. And the melody came out so good that it became a part of this album that is now Grammy nominated. But I'm also using LumaFusion and quite a other awesome apps to just try to make it a full, complete iOS package. So I don't barely ever use a Mac at all these days.
So is there a point at which it does go to, I'm thinking for mix or for that sort of thing, is there a point where it does actually transition into desktop for you guys? Or is it you're completely staying away from that?
No, definitely. I know most people that I collaborate with are still using laptops, Macs, MacBook Pros, the whole nine. So what I usually do is export stems, and then we'll take them right into Pro Tools. So it's kind of going back to the normal process after it leaves my hands. But I have been able to do some full on, all the way through creations from beginning to end, just using the iPad Pro. So yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I know, Ty. I mean, we're looking at you. I mean, I'm sure lots of people have got big facilities and big studios and what have you. I mean, I know you've got a mobile rig, but you've not taken, the purest mobile form, iOS or whatever, hasn't. Sorry,
I tried it.
Okay.
And I mean, within a day, I felt like kicking somebody or throwing the iPad Pro against the wall. And you can't. To be fair, the kind of stuff I do, you can't do it on an iPad.
Because you got loaded massive orchestral libraries and stuff, they just won't fit. Yeah.
Nothing works out once. And also, kind of no matter how great the interface is, I've got sausage fingers, and so kind of doing that drives me round the bend. So I tried, and I still keep buying the software. And my iPads are full of all the software, but every time I try to use it, it's just, I want to scream. So yeah, I manage a few hours, and then it's just like, no, I'd rather go and stick my head in the oven, to be fair. So
well, I guess that's fine. I mean, also the thing is I guess, Henny, you probably for you may have had time to explore this before kind of turning up at a paid session. You're not kind of experimenting on the fly so much, maybe, right?
No, it took a few years. It started back in 2015, just trying to see how possible it was, and I got locked out the studio multiple times when I just brought in an iPad Air 2 and tried to make a believer out of everybody in the room. So it took some time to get everybody to believe, but it's getting better and better.
So you're a sort of evangelical preacher for the iOS domain, right? Essentially, that's your kind of other title, right?
Yeah.
So, sorry.
I was just going to say, it's great in theory, and if you can make it work, it's absolutely brilliant. And I know people that do it, and it absolutely works for them. And it's great. I wish it just worked for me and sausage fingers, but nah.
That's fair enough. So, Matt, coming back to you, so what was the outcome? Where are we in that kind of convergence, and how does it, from your point of view, how's it working out?
Oh, well, I guess the entire conference decided to throw away their laptops, and now we all have to make music on iPhones. I think what happens.
And you're joining us on an iPhone as well, so there we go. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was a spirited debate, and I think a lot of great new ideas came out of it, and I think the whole thing's going to be on YouTube, even with a cameo from yours truly. Right?
Oh yeah, I fired in a question. What was my question? What do you have to do to make people abandon the desktop to come into iOS devices or handheld devices? I think I actually did speak to you guys last night at the excellent Blackfriars bar that we met in, and there was no conclusive answer to that particular question, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, all I was saying is that, when it comes to getting more people to switch over, you just gotta, there has to be, more news about it, more people being, doing successful projects with these devices, and the more they become successful, the more people are saying that it's possible. So, hopefully we can continue to get the word out as we do things in a professional manner.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because in many ways, music technology has got to the point, for you, Ty, for me, we've all designed these kind of highly personalized workflows that present the path of least resistance from the idea to the finished product. When you're working on a cutting edge platform, you're constantly battling with, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And I mean, I guess, Henny, you're, and I know, Gaz, you do the same thing. I mean, it depends how much of your time and your bandwidth you're prepared to devote to that side of it rather than just getting on with the actual job in hand, I suppose, right? You've got to be fairly obsessive about it, driven perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a testament. You have to you know, I had to throw away pretty much the idea of saying, let me just try to make sure I can do both and use one as just a way to kind of tinker and then go back to my normal using Macs, using MacBooks, you know, to fully create like I've been past 15, 20 years. You gotta, you know, get into the mind state is, if this is possible, let me see it all the way through. And yeah, it can get frustrating, but as us guys over here as beta testers in the world of iOS musicianship, there's no better great feeling is when it starts to really work. So.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm being asked now to stop talking about this and get on with some synths, but we will come back to this. I try not to be influenced by the chat room too much, and I fully expect to go my own way. But let's start. I think this is going to work, but I just wanted to drop this in here. So Benj has just released. I don't know if you are all aware of Benj. Benj is a kind of really well-known synthesist. He did a whole bunch of stuff with John Fox, and he's got a beautiful, beautiful collection of synths. And what he's done is an album that is it's just going to play. I hope I've got it. An album that he made, essentially, it's like a study on the Moog 3C. He's lucky enough to have a fairly decent 3C system, which many people I know. Ty's got a 55, a remake, and Benji, I think, has got an original like 1960s 3C, and he's built this series of tracks, like an EP, I guess, just using that and a couple of other things. And he said, I've just, I think some of the notes say that what he's done is, let me try the last one. The last one's got a little bit more melodic content, so it develops a bit more. Let me just fast forward that a bit. And he said he basically, to create some stereo imagery, he just delayed one side by 500 milliseconds. But essentially, this is a study on a single instrument called Field Effect Studies by Benj. I thoroughly recommend it. But Ty, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, and I know you're a synth collector. I mean, you don't like to let anything go. I've witnessed the rooms full of stuff, but you know, generally your day-to-day work, you know, you really do have to use whatever is the file. Yeah. So, yeah. But I mean, what about the concept, the idea? I mean, the idea of writing using one instrument and using that as that limitation. I mean, we've talked about limitations before, and they're usually a set of things. But the idea of having just like, okay, I'm going to use one synthesizer. I mean, does that appeal to you at all? To sort of your creative?
It appeals a lot. For me, though, it would depend what the synth is, because you know, when you're going to go for something like you know, kind of a 3C or you know, or sort of like my 55 or you know, something big and juicy, then I think it's a great idea. You know, I think the idea of working on one synth, and if nothing else, it means you absolutely have to know that synth like the back of your hand to get what you need out of it, and that in itself is you know. I was going to say I wish I had the time to do that. Now I have no excuses. I do have the time to do that, and that's really valuable. Who's the guy that did it from the synth guy from Nine Inch Nails that did the whole thing on an MC202?
That was Alessandro Cortini.
He did a whole album just on 202. I have to say that is a work of genius, because anyone that can get a 202 to sound anything other than and he made it absolutely sing. That's incredible. So, but the idea of just getting one synth and doing a whole album out of it, it's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Okay, I have a question for you then. Which synth would it be? I mean, because it doesn't necessarily have to be one that you know. It could be one that you really want to get to know, because you would have to get to know it to do that, right?
Schmidt.
Okay.
And honestly, I mean, because it would either be the 80, the CS80 or the Schmidt. The thing is about the CS80 is that the CS80 always sounds like a CS80, if that makes sense. Everything you do on an 80 sounds, so you know, you would be struggling to get really bass sounds out of an 80 because it's not kind of made for it, and everything sounds like an 80. The thing is about what I love about the Schmidt is it can sound like anything you want it to sound like, if that makes sense. It's such a chameleon that you know, to say a palette, the palette is huge. So okay. It would, without even thinking, it would absolutely be the Schmidt.
Right. So, well, that's good to know. Good to know. I appreciate that. So you chaps, I'm going to come. Henny, I know this. I mean, it could be an iOS instrument. I mean, you know, you don't have to purely stick to the iOS world, but I mean, it's entirely up to you. But I mean, the concept. I mean, this album is actually it's not very, because it's modular. There's not a lot of melodic evolution, shall we say. It's more textural and soundscape, and it's really lovely, and the Moog sounds great. But he's not using these kind of really big, bold, Moogy sounds, but the concept of doing something on a single instrument. I mean, how does that appeal to you? I mean, you can't say it's an MPC either, because that's not fair, because that's samples.
No, I mean, I think it's pretty neat. I mean, to be able to pull off that, and to do everything from the melodic stuff to the the percussive stuff, to be able to do it all in one instrument is very unique. So I dig it.
What would you go for?
What would you do?
Oh,
if you did it? What instrument?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Try to see about doing something on maybe a Fender, Rhodes.
Yeah, okay.
Because has great, lift going for the bass sounds, and then we can try to do some percussive things. We could definitely, I can definitely see something. We got more guests coming in.
We got another guest.
Okay.
What I was going to say, Nick, Benj did that album before, didn't he? Where every song on the album was he was just a
different
single
synth.
synth.
Right. Yeah.
And I got to hang out with him actually. He's a really, really cool guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's he's been doing that really interesting thing with John Grant. What's it called? Maybe the chat room can help. With John Grant and the guy from Cabaret Voltaire as well.
Oh, that was at Synthfest, wasn't it? That was the show they were doing.
Creep Show.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so he's a busy guy, Benj. Myself, though, I've been doing tracks entirely with the new Stylophone at the moment, which is quite good fun. Doing all the parts. I got some stuff going to come out on video pretty soon, showing that, so that's quite cool. But we've just got a little guest. Come on.
Another guest?
A special guest. Another guest coming in.
Okay.
Hang on, I'll duck out.
Okay, who we got? I have no idea who we're going to get. Mr. Chris Randall from Audio Damage. We spoke to you yesterday as well, Chris.
Yes.
Lovely to have you aboard. How's the show been for you from a point of view? Been fulfilling and all of those good things?
Yeah, it's actually quite good. I mean, a lot of these people that are here I've been talking to for years or decades in some cases, and it's nice to put faces to names finally.
Yeah, what's going on? Is that air conditioning?
Pardon me?
Was that air conditioning or aircraft?
No, I think it was an airplane flying low over London or something. Helicopter or something.
So, Chris, this was the question that we just had. We've just covered that Benj has just released an album mostly using the Moog 3C. So it's a study on that, essentially. And I wondered whether or not there was an instrument or a electronic or otherwise that you would think, actually, you could do something similar. If you were in creative mode, what instrument would you choose to limit yourself to using to make...
a single instrument for a whole album?
Yeah.
I suppose you couldn't say like Kronos or something.
Well, yeah, I guess you could. But then,
doesn't count.
Yeah, but that would be that would defeat the concept, I suppose, a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I could easily do an album with the Moog 1. That would be a piece of cake. Drums, it's not great. It's not great at percussion sounds, but if I had to do like a full production, I would probably choose a simpler mono synth. Like something that had everything that you would need. CS10 maybe. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would take a simple mono synth that was still had a wide voicing range to so that like you're gonna use simpler to make poly sounds with your mono synth or whatever, then it should be a straightforward synth, and then do everything after the fact.
Okay. And then, of course, if it's got something that's got plenty of width and girth and, it's got plenty of stuff in there that you can subtract.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't want too much like a mini Moog, because that just takes over. Then it's a mini Moog album. It's not a U album,
Yeah, that's true. That is
then
true.
Then it's about the mini Moog,
Well, I mean, that's the interesting thing about the Benj one, because it doesn't sound very Moogie. Oh, gosh, I said Moog right. Fantastic. That's got to be a first for a long time. It doesn't sound very Moogie or Mogi, depending on your point of view. It hasn't gone for the big, massive oscillators, dominating, which is quite interesting. It's a bit of a refreshing change. Anyway, if you want to check it out, listeners, it's called Field Effects Studies by Benj. It's on Bandcamp, and it's 5 tracks, I believe, but some of them are quite long, so you do get a bunch of stuff. Released on November the 15th on Meme Songs. And in fact, I've started having a chat with Benj, and hopefully we'll get him on either this show or do a little interview of some description, which would be fun. Let's just take a quick break and have our isotope moment. I think it's probably about the time.
Building on a 17-year legacy in audio mastering, Ozone 9 brings balance to your mix with never-before-seen processing for low-end, real-time instrument separation, and lightning-fast workflows powered by machine learning. Expect lower CPU usage and shorter startup times with Ozone 9 compared to Ozone 8. Experience fluid metering in a fully resizable environment that lets you track the most subtle details of your audio. Use more plugins at once, mix while you master without worrying about slowdowns or dropouts. And immerse yourself in a smooth, modern experience designed to keep you in your creative flow. As you can see, Ozone 9 is the fastest way to get your master off the ground. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out our other videos and head to iZotope.com to learn more about mixing and mastering, and to download your free trial of Ozone 9.
Indeed you can, and if you want to find out how to win a copy of Ozone 9 Advanced, then we got the details right here. So we're looking for the hashtag MatchEQ and the hashtag Ozone 9 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. It's a Twitter competition. We're looking for the hashtag MatchEQ and the hashtag Ozone 9 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. We thank them very much for their sponsorship of the show. And we do have a winner from last week's show. So step forward, Mr. Jeffrey Derry, please, @Jeff with a J, _DERY. You entered and you were picked by the supercomputer picking algorithm that does its thing every week. So there we go. It's a bit like the one that they use for picking the lottery numbers, only way cheaper. Right, okay, so let's see what's next. Oh, well, okay, we got to get this. And it's really interesting to have a bit of Behringer news that's not a synth tease, because let's face it, most of them usually are. So let's... oh, no, actually, what am I talking about? That'll be next. Let's do this one. So this is Bitwig 3.1, which has just gone into beta. As they do, they start in beta and then they go, if you're a registered user with a current update plan, you can basically download it and start testing it. And a lot of it's about pitch, micro-tuning, sort of slightly wonky pitching, all kinds of stuff that is using pitch to modulate other things. Lots of new modules that along that line, and I won't play the whole video, but I thought that this is kind of interesting because microtuning seems to be a thing that's happening a lot, but I'm not sure I could say what is it that is microtuning. Oh, hold on, we're getting just coming. Oh, what's that?
So this is one. It looks surprisingly familiar.
Ah. Is that something that you're thinking that Bitwig may have taken some inspiration from, or that you've had some input into?
I know we'd be honored if they were inspired a little by it. But yeah, this is, completely open source, so we would definitely encourage people to take what they can from Synth1's micro-tuning.
Yeah, but I wonder, I was going to come to you, Ty. I mean, you're a composer, you're working to tight deadlines, generally, people are wanting to hear things that are familiar, perhaps. You're a director. I presume it's quite rare you might find a director who wants a completely atonal score. But micro-tuning, I mean, how useful is it in your arsenal? I mean, do you find you have to reach for it very often?
Yeah, I do, actually. It's mainly in terms of, in a kind of different way. I mean, if you're doing a kind of, I did a score to a horror film last year. And, the whole point of a horror score is you're meant to be made to feel uncomfortable. And the one great thing about microtuning is generally speaking, for us, it makes you feel uncomfortable. So I use it quite a lot there. And also, I do a load of ethnic stuff. And so you could turn around and say, I try to work in authentic scales depending on, kind of where I'm for in the world. And so, I kind of work to scales with microtuning in, essentially. And so I use it quite a lot. But the other thing is, don't kind of forget that in the 70s when you were out, with step sequences, a lot of that
it was just out of tune.
It was out of tune. But the thing is, go and listen to some of the stuff by kind of the sequence stuff on Computer World by Kraftwerk. A lot of those sequences, there's some microtuning going on there in the kind of, it sounds all kind of random, but a lot of it, there's no set scale or pitch to it. They are out of tune, which essentially, you turn around and go, out of tune is microtuning. So
I suppose. I suppose you're right. I mean, that's the only thing I would say is I've sort of noticed it really when you're working with things like polyphonic expression, like the Roley stuff, which is very apt because you're at the ADC. So you're bending the notes out of whack, and that really makes some very interesting chords. I don't know if you guys, Gaz, do you use any microtuning in terms of music? Musical uses, because I'm struggling to find a place where I would reach for that kind of stuff.
Right. It is a bit strange. Something that was pretty cool was playing around with the chord monologue, because that famously came with a bunch of Aphex Twin curated micro tunings. So playing around with that was quite fun, actually. And I did have a bit of an epiphany when I was playing around with it in terms of some of the creative potential. It's just kind of cool that just the notes under your fingers just take on those sort of different melodic qualities, and finding the melody is quite interesting. I love Indian music, classical Indian music, and which is obviously quarter tonal. So I do feel it is like this great sort of thing to explore. We got the microtuning going on in the room right now.
Excellent. We're witnessing microtuning in action, folks.
Synth One is the most popular, iOS synth in the world, and partly because of the micro tuning. The Eastern scales going beyond the 12 tones, it really opens things up, and I think we're going to see more and more of that in Western music. Like Adam Neely just made this video with 1 million views a couple weeks ago about making lo-fi hip hop with micro tuning scales. So I think it's also going to take us for a couple of people to have some hits using some microtonal scales, and people are going to jump on that bandwagon. And we're seeing these tools in Bitwig and Synth One and other open source platforms.
Henny, I think it's over to you then, mate. You're the one who's probably closest to the cutting edge of music production in terms of what's been recognised. I mean, I don't know whether your kind of stuff is pure hip hop or it's more soul based, or whether whether there's room for that kind of micro tuning element. But quite often, certainly in the kind of newer generation soul stuff and the hip hop production, that it bends the melodic, the rules of music, and to great effect, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know, there's guys that I work with all the time who are definitely, into microtuning quite a bit. Guys like Terrace Martin and others that I've worked on with Kendrick Lamar. I mean, we're definitely trying new ways to get different soul vibes and different feels going. But, I would say I'm an R&B guy, I'm a hip hop guy, soul guy, so I definitely can see it in the production in the future for sure.
I wonder, I mean, does it work? Is it more effective with weird chords, or is it more effective in terms of melody? I know, Ty, I'll come to you because you're probably, like you said, using a bunch.
Yeah, weird chords can be a bit much. It depends what you're going for, but realistically, that it's almost okay if you have a single line that kind of doesn't follow traditional 12 note, the listener can kind of accept it. If you really start doing multiple chords with multiple microtuning, it's almost like
I can't cope. Yeah,
I can't cope. They don't have anything to latch onto. The whole point of kind of Western scales is the fact it's familiarity, and that people have something to latch onto. They have a base that they can keep coming back to. And if you kind of lose that, for a lot of people, it's just too much. I mean, when I was at uni, I used to write a lot of kind of microtone stuff, and it's great if you're going to treat it as proper art, serious music, and the kind that you listen to with a thinking about it rather than just enjoying it, then it's great. But if you just want to listen to it, having too much going on.
So you didn't get not many plays on campus radio then, maybe?
No.
Okay, right, cool. But if you want to get into it, basically Bitwig 3.1 is out. It's not only micro pitch, there's pitch 12, there's pluck slope up, pluck slope down, follower, transpose, interactive help, and there's also some interesting stuff which transforms microtuning on input, so you can be playing and it will quantize, I think, to microtune. I would have, and modulate, so it looks like a pretty interesting series of things. And what they're doing again, I guess, is, I don't know, were any of the Bitwig people at the developer conference? I mean, it seems like a sort of place that would make sense for them to hang out.
I don't know if the Bitwig guys are here, but the Ableton guys are definitely here. So
right, okay.
There's something coming.
There's something coming. That's the disembodied voice of Chris Randall here. I don't know whether that means into the room or, whatever.
I'm not disappointed. I'm excited.
Okay, all right. Well, that sounds good. So yeah, we've done the bit. Right, and now I guess I can get on to the video that I was going to play, which again I was saying it sort of makes a difference that we're playing something from Behringer that's not just another synth clone. So this is the Wing, which was trailed. Apparently this is a concept that's been working on for a long time. I don't know how much of that's true or how much of it's marketing, but essentially it seems the evolution of the X32, which I can totally vouch for. This desk, the sound of this Sonics lab goes through the X32. It's a great facility. It was groundbreaking in terms of features for design and price. So this is the Wing, and then what they've done with this, rather than they've worked on the control surface, so you don't get a lot of I/O, but you can add a lot of I/O as you need it, as you decide you want to use it. So it's got networking capabilities, 3 AES ports. It's also going to work with it will also work with your existing stage boxes, which is actually quite a smart move. They didn't go to 96K, which is interesting, but you got 8 all of that kind of stuff, touchscreens and things. And it's for me anyway, it seems to be where Behringer are kind of the good Behringer, which the one I appreciate more, which is new design, new breaking ground, and all of that kind of stuff. So Ty, I know you've got the Yamaha. But I mean, no, I'm not. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not expecting you to have a pro Behringer epiphany moment. I'm just thinking in terms of the digital networked console. It's not an uncommon concept to use. So I mean, as more people can get hold of this stuff.
No, I tell you what it reminds me of, because I had a big system like this back in the day. Do you remember the Roland VM 7000 series?
Crikey, no, I'm going to have to do a quick search on that. Sounds big.
The hay is blowing through the deserts and nobody remembers it. Okay, so back in the mid-90s, Roland did a VM 7200 was the main system. And essentially it was kind of modular in that you bought the fader and then all of the IOs were a separate box, and you could have up to two lots of faders, 2 lots of everything. So I had a 48 channel system with 48 faders, had built-in Roland effects, and the first time I saw this, there we go. That's the brain.
The stage box.
That's the brain. And I used it in the studio, and it was amazing. I mean, it was absolutely incredible, and that's kind of what this reminds me of. There's a lot of similarities, and I think the last Behringer mixer that I had was many, many, many years ago, and was a digital desk, and was awful. And
was that the one? I remember. What was that called? I remember that one. It was.
I can't remember. It was dreadful. I mean, and it was noisy, and then it broke, and then it failed, and But I know for a fact, look, people know my view on Behringer generally, but this, as exactly as you said at the beginning, this is the area, this is the side of Behringer that in my head He's not Behringer really. This is Midas. This is the Midas guys. This is, this is where they're doing something different and new, and that's great. And as you say, the X32 was for its time was amazing. And depending on the price of this,
€3,000.
How much? Sorry,
€3,000. It's 2,999, I think, according to Toman. I did find a picture of it. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
There it is, 299
Wow.
euros. So yeah, I would like to just point out though, I'm pretty sure the X32 and this have come out of Germany, not out of. They've got Midas preamps, but I don't think the actual. So I think the X32 was designed and built by the I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Well.
Oi! Somebody got a message.
Well, in which case, move on.
Fair enough. So I'm coming back to you guys. Behringer mixer. I mean, I love. You like the XR18. I've got the XR18. I like the X32. I think they're kind of gets quality stuff, or at least a great feature for price kind of scenario. And the Midas preamps, as we know, are great. I'm just trying to think what this is. This has got 8 I/O balanced I/O. It's got the Auxis Sends. It's got 48 stereo channels, which is kind of interesting. I think that the channels operate as stereo, which is kind of cool. It doesn't go to 96K. Also, you've got, I think, 64 channels of SD card recording, plus a 32 I/O USB card as standard, plus audio networking, which what would be great is if it had AVB, because then you could just plug it into a Mac and just, you'd be golden. But I don't think it has that as standard.
They've got their own. They've had their own standard for a while, though, haven't they? Their own one.
No, they chose AES 50. It just wasn't the one that everybody else went for. So there are Dante options for this, and MADI options, which you can. But yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. But I mean, the X32 was, an absolute sort of milestone in mixing desk history, I suppose. Is it right that that's the best-selling live mixer now?
Could be. I don't know. I mean, it depends who you ask. If you ask Behringer, they'll probably say, yeah. But
it's what's curious about this is obviously it's got a very distinct new look. Looks very different from the previous models.
Yeah.
And obviously the name Wing as well. I wonder now if we're going to see, like with the X32, we saw the X32 essentially being turned into a whole load of other, spun into a whole load of other products. The compact, the producer, the X Air and various things. So I'm kind of interested to see if the Wing is going to be just.
I take your point. It's interesting though, because what they've gone for here is all the capabilities on you've got a massive control surface with less I/O. So the starting point hasn't got that much I/O, but you can either plug it into your existing I/O if you've got Behringer stage boxes or MADI or whatever it is. You can get those options. So it's the idea of shrinking. Maybe they'll do a smaller version. I don't know. I noticed everybody seems to have left your side. Has everybody?
I've got. There we
go. We're still here, just ducking out. Yeah. There we go. I tell you what, I'm curious about is you guys.
Has a bit of a hum.
So I mean, do you still, Chris? I mean, I don't know what your music production kind of background or skills are. Do you still have a console, and what console do you have?
No, I gave up. I gave up a console years ago. My home studio is Dante, though, so I have several different interfaces depending on what I need. I've got a couple of the little Focusrite boxes for headphones around my house. I can just plug it right into the network, and I have 2 in, 2 out. I've got a couple of Yamaha stage boxes for hooking up all my ridiculous nonsense. So it depends on what I need. I just move it around the house, and then I have a matrix on my main studio computer where I can just, the H9000 is kind of the hub of the whole thing, and I have 8 analog I/O in that, which my 500 rack plugs into. It's kind of a complicated system, but Dante makes it so I can just mix and match, whatever I might need for the context, and the rest can just go on the shelf. I'm not stuck with a monolithic control surface.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know, Henny, I mean, I guess, you're still using iOS stuff in your scenario. I mean, are you just going straight to a sound card, or have you got any kind of mixing surface or console or control that you use to mix, or are you doing it purely and on screen, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I have quite a few interfaces, and I also have a studio at the college that I teach at where we have an SSL 900. But you majorly use the Apogee products, the Duet, the Apogee One, the Apogee Jam, the Apogee Hype Mic. So I use a lot of very mobile products. I use the Zoom products, the H6, the U22. I have a few Roland or Yamaha mixers that can be plugged in directly to iPad. So whatever I need, I have, but it's usually very small, and everything is usually done on screen.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, even though, the cutting edge of working production-wise on iOS, you're very far away from the cutting edge of the audio networking and the audio over IP. I mean, I guess you can probably pipe stuff out. I don't know. Does the iPad have AVB connectivity yet, or is there a way of moving multiple channels over network out of an iPad? I don't know if there is. It's usually just controlling controllers, stuff like that. But I suppose you're just moving the whole thing. There's no need to just walk into the room you want it in, and you're in it, I suppose, to a degree.
With the Wing, though, the Wing is marketed primarily as a live desk. Then it's not marketed as a studio.
I think both. I mean, I think to be honest, I mean, it's got I think it's going to have MCU control as standard, so it does all of that stuff. There was an article on Pro Tool Expert, which I don't think I've got up, where they're saying, actually, is this something that would be pretty cool for a studio? And I guess with all the audio networking, you could kind of see how that would be the case, because you could just plug in all your stage boxes and route. And I think it's got a 2-port audio networking USB hub in it as well, but it also got the 32IO over USB. I mean, I know that you and I both use the XR18 as a straight sound card, so you could use this as a straight sound card and just route, because it's got 28 internal buses. I can't remember what it's got. It's got 28 buses, so you could just ping it wherever you want. I'm pretty sure.
As an audio interface, so it's still that 48K is its top.
Yeah, they've stuck with that.
Right.
Well, so I think this question came up, and the idea was that it would be compatible with previous stage boxes and stuff, so people wouldn't have to completely redo their entire workflow. I think that was their entire kit, and certainly for live people, you want to be selling the new desk to the guy who's just got 16 or 32 channels of stage box and doesn't have to buy, because that's expensive, that stuff. 16 channels of stage box, whatever flavor you use, is probably a grand a pop. So
unless it's a Yamaha Tio.
A what?
Yamaha Tio is the best stage box return on your investment ever made. 16 in, 8 out. The high quality Yamaha preamps. It's Dante, so you gotta have a Dante rig. But they put the stage box as a loss leader for the console, so they're paying the Dante license out of the console, so that extra couple $100 isn't figured into the stage box. So it's only $900.
That's it there, right?
I use that for all my tape decks, all my multi-track tape decks.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
Fantastic box. I wouldn't want to record a band with it, I don't think. It would work. You could do live sound with it for sure. But for my tape I/O, it's fantastic. Or a bunch of effects or something.
Top tip. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, as we know, Gaz, I mean, if you want high res, you just got to go up AXR4T, right? If you want 384 kilohertz, 32-bit, if that's your bag, why ever not?
Yeah.
32-bit integer.
Yeah, 32-bit integer. But at 10 times the data cost.
Yeah, that's right. Need a lot of drives. A lot of drives. Okay, right. Where are we? So it's 1:45. I'm wondering about control. I haven't got a video for this, but this was. Let me see if I can find it. There's the Fader Fox, which is.
Oh yeah.
Where is it? Hold on. I might have not opened a page. I'll just let me see. I've got it here somewhere. Fader. I'll grab it. It's an easy thing to open. Yeah, this was the new Fader Fox box that actually Peter Kern on Create Digital Music was posting. I'm just trying to find the open window. Let's see if this is if the network will open. Yeah, There's no videos on it yet, but this new Fader Fox, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's nothing sort of, it doesn't look that terribly exciting, but actually it's pretty powerful because you've got lots of banks. I think there's up to 256. So that would be, I don't know, 16 banks of 16, I guess. So there's, 16 rotor encoders, but you're labeled as well. And it's got MIDI I/O and USB I/O. And it looks like a really, really cool box because you can recall all those configurations and they'll be labeled up. And then because they're rotaries, you're not getting into that, oh, where's the knob? And that's the thing that really works very well. And it certainly works. That's the same kind of concept that works really, really well on the Hydrasynth is they're all rotaries. It's a shame we haven't got the ring around them, but I don't know if it shows the actual... no, it doesn't show the value, but maybe it does when you turn it. I mean, as there are no videos, I'm going to have to basically, So, Ty, I'll come to you again. Controller-wise, I mean, your desk is essentially, is an analog desk, but it's a controls. Are you using much in the way of actual controllers for controlling other things like that? Would this be something that would have a place in your studio?
I've got loads of this kind of stuff. I used to use a lot of MIDI controllers. But now everything's kind of either in the desk or, I can access everything from one of the complete keyboards or the SL or because I've got the controller for I can't remember what it's called for the SL. So, I mean, I think it's great. There was back in the day, I used to be a Kenton control freak, man. Do you remember the Kenton control freak?
Yeah, I think we've got one or had one here, yeah.
Yeah, I've still got mine, but I've bought loads of these kind of things. And as I said, a few years ago, I used to have them all mapped out and set up. And now just less and less, really. They're all kind of integrated into the keyboard. Or as you say, the desk you can assign almost anything to anything on the desk. And so I don't really use it that much, something like this that much. But I mean, if you haven't got a controller, I've said so many times, you can never have enough controllers, ever. And the way that the labeling on this one works, it's not ideal. The fact that you don't know what the values are isn't ideal. But again, for 299, I mean, there's a lot in there for 299.
And it's compact, very compact. Which
yeah,
cool.
So it looks great. It's not for me, but it looks. Years ago, 5-10 years ago, I would have absolutely jumped at this, but not now.
They make Fader Fox make a lot of specialised controllers. I don't know whether any of you guys working in control. Henning, I'm going to come back to you as well because I know that, okay, so iOS stuff, it doesn't mean you wouldn't use MIDI controllers. I mean, what do you use to input keys, for instance? I mean, and does that have element controls? Do you have hardware controller stuff in your rig at all?
Do I have hardware controllers in my rig? Yes, I have quite a few. I use... CME X-Key products. So I have the X-Key Air, X-Key 37, and then I also use the Nectar Panorama 61. We have some other keyboards and stuff like that, but it's mostly keyboard things. I don't have a lot of pad controllers as much. I just use mostly keyboard stuff.
And do you use, because we use MIDI Designer Pro here, which you can sort of build, whatever interface you want. I mean, do you create control, do you have control applications that you use, or are you just basically just grabbing hold of the stuff that's available on the screen in the app itself?
I don't have many controllers like that, no.
Ah, okay. All right, cool. And Gaz, I know. I mean, we saw. I don't know if you saw Yoad's studio. I mean, his massive Neve studio with his 256 MIDI ports and everything is mapped to these little Logic. What are they called? Environments, and the whole thing is running off a Behringer BCR of 2000. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, And this is it. This is built into the center section of his desk. But he's absolutely, what he likes about it is just to be able to. Everything is right there in his sweet listening spot. So, I mean, there is a place. It's just that sometimes it can take... I wonder whether it takes more time than it saves to set these things up.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that screen is certainly going to help on this little Fader Fox. But do you remember a couple of weeks ago, we covered another very similar product, didn't we? That was in... I think it was on a Kickstarter or something, wasn't it? There was another small form controller that had... and that sort of had a slightly better interface, a better looking interface. I mean, what's great about Fader Fox stuff typically is the really small footprint. They are very compact little units, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they got nice. I really like the feel of them, but they are really kind of pretty small things. But yeah, the thing we looked at the other day, remember, it was when Robbie was on the show. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was a similar thing.
Oh, he was going to buy it, wasn't he? Yeah, I remember now. Yeah,
that's right, on the show.
I've got a tighter close up.
Yeah.
This will do apparently up to 4,096 controls. Just saying, in case you happen to need it.
Yeah, right. So I mean, yeah, and I
I can't even remember what the hell.
Well, that's why you label them. Yeah.
I used the first 3.
Yeah. On the top row.
But yeah. But I guess that's quite cool, though. I guess if the memory allows you to store various settings, I don't know if they'll release templates for.
Yeah, I really don't know. There's not that much information on the website other than just the general thing. I don't know if there is an editor for it. It'll do NRPNs. It'll do a control change or pitch bend, 14-bit controllers. So you get all of that. You got 16 memories. So
right, 16 memories. Okay.
16 times 4,096. So
okay.
That should do most people, I'd imagine, apart from Johan possibly.
Is there a price on it?
Yeah, it's €299. So it's premium, but it's teeny tiny, and it's the sort of thing that you chuck in your bag. You tend to see people using them in sort of small, compact Ableton Live setups where they're taking their computers.
Yeah.
And that. Oh, incidentally, one of the reasons we were up in London yesterday was to see the new MacBook 16-inch MacBook Pro. So we got like a kind of look at that, and that was kind of cool. And one of the things that they did, and I know you guys were laughing at this, but they were very keen to show the integration with the iPad Pro stuff, where you get what's it called, Sidecar. Where you can use, which I mean, on the face of it, it's like, hey, look, there's another screen. That makes sense, yeah, great. I don't know if it's done over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth Wi-Fi. I hope, because it would have to be, there's a lot of data moving around, because it was wired. It can be direct as well. Okay.
Yeah, USB-C to USB-C.
Okay. But one thing that they did do, which I thought was kind of cool, was you can basically move a plugin or an interface onto the window and then use the multiple touch to control all of that stuff. So it's a sort of a sideway, a backdoor way into multi-touch on an Apple desktop device, which I thought was kind of interesting. And it is the sound of it was awesome, and the power was amazing, and all of those things. But yeah, it was.
And they brought the escape key back.
The escape keys come back.
Nobody's for taking it in the first place.
Yeah, well, they played us this swanky video. I mean, it wasn't really an interactive experience. They kind of presented at us, and we had about time for a question. But there was a bit where they were talking to a developer, and she said, "And I've got the escape key back," which obviously is Chris. I'm sure your guys will be delighted at the fact that there's an escape key back on the latest Macs when you upgrade all your stuff, right?
Oh yeah, nothing I love more than adding to my stack of Macs. Yeah.
well, actually, one thing they did say was the MacBook Pro was the 15 is the best-selling Mac product that they make.
I have 2, so I'm part of that, I guess.
Yeah, I've got 3 in this room, and I've had ones before that. So I've got 3 generations of MacBook in this room, which mine fortunately have never fallen apart. The one before this, I had that thing where they had the graphics card used to get really hot, and it would melt, and then your screen wouldn't work anymore. And the only way they could fix it was they'd send it back and they'd reflow the solder, and if that fixed it, then great. Otherwise, new motherboard. And that's one thing I have to say. There's a really good article again on Pro Tools Expert about the whole kind of desirability, the recyclability, and how they these ridiculously cheap chips that can brick your machine. That
I had the battery blow problem on one of my 2015s. It bent the unibody, and then when they did the recall, I sent it in, and they sent me. It had the same screen, but otherwise everything else was new.
Okay.
So they might as well just send. So I basically just got a brand new 2015.
That's cool. I know, Ty. I mean, your mobile rig, Ty. I'd imagine. I don't know what your current MacBook is, but I mean, it's going to be pretty integral to when you are working your writing system when you're going to be moving around. I guess you've looked.
One of these. I've just ordered one of these new 16 inches, and then my rig at the moment is based on whatever the latest the one before 15 inches, and I'm like you, they're sitting around doing stuff. But the new 16-inch, they look fantastic. So that kind of, looking forward to that arriving when it arrives.
8 terabyte SSD. You could put an 8 terabyte SSD in it, which is
I didn't put 8 in. I put 4 in.
Right, but so, you put a lot of RAM in it as well, which I think for your work is going to be,
That was all it was. I basically just maxed it out, and the only thing I didn't max out was the 4 terabyte instead of the 8 terabyte.
Yeah, well,
because that was the only thing that didn't make sense. So for kind of for the kind of stuff I do, as you say, the RAM's the important bit. So
yeah, absolutely cool. So sorry, carry on.
No, I was only going to say, going back to the sidecar bit. I've been doing that for ages with I think it's called Luna. There's been it was a Kickstarter thing a couple of years ago where it's like a little USB-C thing that goes inside and then links to another screen, and it's amazing because it's exactly just like you've got 2 screens using an iPad Pro or another MacBook, and it completely integrates the 2 of them visually. It's called Luna, I think. So I've had that kind of thing for ages, and it really makes a difference. So
I know. We should probably do that here, KVR. I mean, the other thing that we went up to, we saw the YouTube building. A guy called Darren, who's one of the chief engineer audio guy up there. He took us for a tour, the one at the YouTube Creator Center. And we went into the basement and saw the kind of the server rooms and all that stuff. And the whole building, all the stuff, there's a KVR down there that basically lets you connect to any single computer. So, because everything's networked and in the basement, and it's all kind of fired over fiber and Cat5 and stuff. And it was just really cool to be able to kind of, because obviously you run upstairs, you're going, oh yeah, I need to change that. Oh, I think there's something needs patching in the basement. You go to the basement and you need to know what's on the screen so you can get to it. I mean, that is a cutting edge facility, man. I've never seen anything like it. It was absolutely awesome. But yeah, that was one of the reasons we were up there yesterday.
I was curious about Sidecar, and I wonder if anyone in the chat room can actually find this out, or if they know whether you can run, like, say, a Mac Mini or a Mac Pro headless, without any, and only use an iOS screen.
I remember there was, because we had headless Mac Minis here, but you had to have some sort of head plugged in, but which in this case, before we went to our new system, they were coming into HDMI inputs in our Vision Mixer, so that there was a way to access them. I don't know that whether, I mean, obviously the big deal is with the 16-inch MacBook is it's going to be running Catalina, which, as we know, has had problems, and there will undoubtedly be some of the software that you use every day may not actually make it across because either the developer's no longer developing, or they haven't caught up or whatever. And that's a risk, and I think that's probably one of the reasons we got invited to go to Apple, because they really want to help us spread the word that it's a cool machine and sell them, because people are going to be holding off. I mean, I'd hold off. I don't know whether that was was that part of your buying decision?
No, I mean, because I know it's not. I know there are going to be issues. I know there's going to be problems. It's just kind of accept. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. It's with that. That's almost going to be my test bed, because I've got this time off. It means that there's not going to be any urgent deadlines done on that.
So you can figure it out.
So that I'd be able to try it out. I mean, but I'm still running my main systems. I'm still running 10 point. I don't know what it is, 12. I think I'm still running Sierra or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's going nowhere near bloody Catalina until that's sorted. So it's almost this is just a nice one for me to stick it on, and well, it'll already be on, and kind of test the waters with it, really.
Well, they said they were going to send us one down to test, which is horrible, because obviously I'm going to have to send it back because there's no way I can afford a new one. But so we'll probably have one for 30 days. I might chuck a few things on it and just see what the issues are and how it is to work. Just give a kind of rough overview of it, and then I'll be standing at the doorway waving with a handkerchief, tearful farewell when it's got to leave.
I just want to know if it'll work with sort of the older USB 2 audio interfaces as well, whether that's still going to be problematic.
I don't know. I mean, I did ask them actually specifically about that, and they said they've been working their way through. Every time they update the firmware and update DOS, they're kind of crossing more of the ones that don't work off the list. So that's what they said.
Just a quickie, Nick. You mentioned about YouTube. There is quite big news for creators about YouTube now. YouTube has now adopted the -14 LUFS standard. Yes,
which is a major deal now, just in terms of having some sort of standardized approach to mastering for YouTube. So
I probably need to find out about that and figure out what we need to do, because I have no idea what this podcast goes out to. It goes out sort of as loud as possible. That seems to be the fixing. Yeah, it goes out as loud as possible. It goes into Neutron 2. I think we've got a plug-in across the output bus, which kind of gives it the sort of FM radio smile and heavy compression and whatnot. So, I don't know. Does anybody else work to a kind of standard for YouTube video? I mean, you probably have to work because, do you deliver your masters at the highest possible crank, or do you just whatever?
Do you know what? There's a whole load of school of thought of doing what I do. No, put it in with no processing on, or no, put it in as loud as possible. I don't really know what I do, to be fair. I honestly don't know kind of how I deliver. I go through I stick some isotope stuff on it. I stick ozone on it at the end, and depending on the track. But honestly, I don't get hung up on all that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day,
someone's going to have a fader on it anyway before it makes it out there.
So I kind of don't get precious about these things. I just kind of honestly, and you're right. I know composers who go into this whole limit of, they give the best for the standards. I don't give a monkeys, really. It leaves the studio and it's gone. I don't watch the programs that he goes out. Oh God, I shouldn't say that, should I?
No. Well, you've seen them you've probably seen them all about 5,000 times each.
I don't want to see any of them again. Ever.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But you see, if you use ozone now, I think it's been in it from the last version as well, that in the loudness maximizer, you can actually, there's a little switch. Yeah, so you can set it.
Instagram is -14. They have been for a while. I noticed if you can get away with pegging it, but if you have a clear tones like Rhodes or some FM sounds, it'll distort real heavily if you go above 12.
Oh.
So I've been uploading an Instagram to -14 for a couple of years now. So
right, I need to have a chat. We probably need to fix a whole bunch of things. We just need to put something probably across the final bus. I mean, we're just using Classic Master Limiter. I mean, I tend not to slam stuff in terms of our reviews. I don't want to, because I want it to sound as natural as possible. I'll maybe slam the vocals to keep them above, but I won't. I'll try and keep all of the other stuff pretty much untouched. But that's just because I have to.
Yeah, I think in most YouTube is tuned for talking, so I think as long as it's just talking like this for the most part, you can slam it and it's fine. But if you're putting up music that you want to sound good, and YouTube as an audio delivery mechanism is super popular, so I would think that just switching ozone to LUFS and putting it up no higher than -12, you're going to get the best results.
Right, that's well worth knowing.
That's my opinion.
Well, guys, I think we're probably fairly close to the end of the show. Gaz, you sound like you have something to add.
I just want to say about something funny that happened on the first day here at the ADC 19 here in the Mermaid in London. There was a quiz on the first night.
And you won, right?
And all right, so we had a good team. We could have brought it home. He's not going to tell the story right. So we had a 6-person team, and they were very good. And then one of them left.
Hey, I was stolen. I was kidnapped.
Yeah, one of them left the team, and that team that he left to won because of his help. And they all got fat. Wouldn't tell them. Now tell them the rest of the story. Go. After that team won.
I was kidnapped. I was kidnapped against my wishes, I do have to say. But then I thought, well, it's okay, because we won't win. But then we did. We won. And everyone won synthesizers. I won a Mini Brute 2.
Wow. Okay.
I know, right?
And then I had to go back to this lot. We're all going, Tracer, boo!
Yeah, I can imagine. We'll have to do a quiz. I think we need to get some kind of a quiz thing going on for a Sonicstate. Maybe we could do a quiz, a Sonic Talk quiz. I think that would be kind of fun.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
I don't know if there's any prizes or not, but we could maybe figure out a way to get.
This can be Christmas episode.
A quiz,
Sonicstate.
that sounds like a great idea. Maybe we could get some prizes or something together. That sounds like a good idea. I like the sound of that.
Idea.
Okay, well, folks, thank you so much for joining us. I should point out next week we have Tori Letzler on, who is you might have seen her. We did an interview with her from Japan. She's an LA-based composer and singer. She does some great stuff, so she'll be on, and whoever else is on as well. And oh look, we've got the whole gang have come into the picture. We've got Henny the Business, and we've got Matt Fesher, and we've got Chris from Audio Damage, and we've got Gaz. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll put links to everybody's stuff in the show notes. And Henny, if you've got any partying left in you today after last night, then I guess you're going to have a kind of post-Grammy nom-party. Congratulations on your nomination, mate. That's awesome. But thank you very much for joining us. And Ty, also thanks for joining us. I hope you have. You look visibly more relaxed and less stressed out already.
When you laugh.
So we'll have to hook up again, and lovely to see you all. So that's it for this week. Before we go, actually, I should say it's this one, isn't it? I bet it should just reiterate the competition. Thank you for. To Isotope, don't remember if you want, or do remember if you want to win a copy of Ozone Advance. We're looking for the hashtag MatchEQ and the hashtag Ozone9 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. So that's it for this week. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll wave goodbye as we leave the building. Thank you, everybody. Have a good time in London. See you all next time. Take care. Bye now.